Tracy with the Oasis for Natural Healing. How are you guys? So last week, we talked about full moons and column AF and F bombs and all that fun stuff. But I don't know if we've ever really talked about like what to expect on parasite cleanses and what happens when you do a parasite cleanse and how do you handle some of that stuff. And we're going to be talking about all that. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about like symptoms and common symptoms that can actually be from parasites. And part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I had a patient that I was talking to. She's been doing fantastic. She originally came in with like depression and some gut issues, hormonal imbalances, and things like that. And she's been with me now for quite some time. She's been with me for 5-6 months. And I tell patients, especially if you've never done a parasite cleanse, that it can take more than 3 months for you to fully get rid of parasites. And this patient is a prime example. So she's been with me for almost 6 months now, maybe, give or take. And she's still passing out parasites. Okay. And actually she calls me up and she goes, so we had her follow-up appointment. I haven't seen her for about a month now. And so we did a follow-up appointment and she's still been taking some of the parasite stuff. So, and she goes, Tracy. And I said, yeah. And she goes, it was so gross. She goes, I have to tell you. And I was like, okay, tell me what. And she goes, well, I was sick for a day or two. And I was like, oh no, because I don't want my patients being sick, right? And I was like, well, what happened? And she goes, well, I was throwing up. And I said, oh, that doesn't sound good. I said, did you have any other symptoms? She goes, no, wait, but just wait. I was like, okay. And she goes, I was throwing up. And she goes, I kept throwing up. And she goes, and I threw up in the sink. And I was like, oh, that does not sound like pleasant at all. And she goes, well, and then I saw spaghetti in there. And you saw spaghetti? And she goes, yeah, I saw noodles. I'm like, okay. I was like, not to sound goofy, but like, I hear a lot of gross stuff, but some things are just like, ew. You still like, even as a practitioner, as excited as I get, I don't want to, certain things, it's just like, oh, don't really want to still hear about that. So she's like, there was noodles. And I said, noodles? And she goes, well, they weren't noodles. I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I started kind of cleaning everything up. And she goes, they were parasites in my throw up. And I was like, oh, and then of course, then there's me. I'm like, did you get me a pic? And she goes, no, I didn't get a pic. So I'm like, why didn't you get me a pic of these things? And so, yeah, she actually threw up some parasites. And she goes, you wouldn't believe on how much I felt better afterwards. She goes, I was sick for one day. And she goes, I got rid of all these parasites. And she goes, there had to have been about like 15 worms. And she goes, I thought they were ramen noodles at first. She goes, but I just remembered. She goes, I haven't had any noodles in like several weeks. She goes, so it wasn't that. And she goes, and they were clear. They were like thin, strainy. And she goes, and they were in a wad. I'm like, and again, I'm like, you didn't get me a picture. She goes, well, no, they weren't as impressive as the ones that you, as you posted. I'm like, dude, if you're the only one that sends me a pic, you're going to win for the month of October. So I'm like, don't forget, like whoever sends me a pic and passes parasites gets a prize at the end of the month. And so I was like, so you got to get me a pic. So, but yeah, these things are like real. And yes, you can poop them out, you can throw them up and everything like that. But really what's going on and why do some people feel worse before they feel better when doing a parasite cleanse? And we're going to be talking about that. So parasites actually can absorb a lot of toxins, and large parasites can have smaller parasites in them. So when we start killing off parasites, they can release a lot of gunk into your system. So if you Google search like parasite die-off or things like that, people say, oh my God, I felt really horrible, feel like I had the flu, I had muscle aches, I had headaches, I felt like really bad and all of these other things. Partly why? Because again, when you kill off parasites, you are killing off something, and then something is dying in your body. And when they die, they release a whole bunch of gunk. And if you do not have the proper supplements to support your body while you're killing off a parasite, you're not going to feel well. And so some of these things that we add on are things like a binder. We add things to support the drainage pathways, such as your bowel, your urine, your lymphatic system. And so you want to make sure that, because if you do not support these areas and you start killing off parasites without the proper support, then all these toxins can build up into your system. And then you can actually feel worse before you feel better. You can get headaches from killing off parasites. You can get more. I know when I did my first parasite cleanse, and even though I was on drainage, I felt very, very anxious, and I had to go back to my practitioner, and they had to add on some supplements to help with the toxins being released from killing off parasites, because my anxiety went up through the roof. Some people can have more gas or more bloating. Some people can have more joint pain. But I find, and this is why I like quantum nutrition testing, when we do quantum nutrition testing, we can help figure out how much or what is actually needed to support the body during this. So most times, die-off effects are very, very minimal, if any at all, which is wonderful for the patient. So how do we do that, and how do we find these things? And what do we do? So here at the Oasis for Natural Healing, we use a technique called quantum nutrition testing. So it's a very non-invasive technique that allows us to assess the body. So how many of you guys have gone to the doctor and you don't feel well and your labs are within normal limits, right? And the doctor goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. Your labs look good, but we can give you a pill for this. Or you're feeling okay, but how many of you guys are on a whole bunch of medications? How many medications are you taking? Are you taking 1? Are you taking 3? How many medications are you on? If you're on what happens if I take you off those medications? Then what happens to your body? Do your symptoms come back? Are they worse than what they were before? So if you said yes, then let me ask you this. Is those medications really handling the underlying cause, or are we just slapping a Band-Aid on top of your symptoms? Because technically, in all honesty, your body should not need a medication. If you need a medication, then there's something that's not functioning optimally in your body. Just because you don't have any symptoms while you're on medication, that doesn't mean that the medication is directly healing the area that's not working. We're just slapping a Band-Aid on it so you don't have the symptoms. Or like one of my patients today, a new consultation, she's on medications and her symptoms are less, but she still has them. So when I asked her the same question that I'm asking you guys, is the medications really handling the underlying symptom and the underlying cause, or are we just slapping a Band-Aid? And at this point, a very poor Band-Aid. And it got her to think. And so here we want to get to the underlying cause of why you have your symptoms and not just put a Band-Aid on things. That's not what I want to do at all. And that's not what you should want to do either. You should want to get to the underlying cause of why you have your symptoms, because everybody says, oh yeah, the body can heal. But how many of you truly believe that your body can heal? If you cut your arm, right? So just hear me out. So if you cut your arm and you start bleeding, you do not have to tell your body to go send platelets to go form a scab. Your body naturally does that. It will form platelets and go heal that scab. So you don't have to tell your body to do that. It just does it, because your body was actually designed to heal. Your body was designed to keep you alive. If you get really, really cold, if you fall through ice and like a really cold water, you become hypothermic. but your fingers and toes get frostbitten. Why? Because the body is really smart. It wants to keep you alive. It wants to stay alive. So what it does, it starts constricting blood vessels in your fingers and toes so the blood can pool up your arm and up your leg and pool all right here into your major organs to keep your major organs warm. So the body is really smart and it knows what it needs to do. The problem is the reason why our bodies start not functioning optimally and as well as they could, as well as it could, is because we've bombarded our bodies with a whole bunch of toxins. And I mean, if you actually look at all of the different things, there are over 10,000 chemicals that are banned in Europe that are allowed in the US. And these things can cause cancer, autoimmune issues, joint pain, gut issues. And it's been clinically proven. And there are scientific studies and research on this. So we want to get to the underlying cause. We want to find out, hey, do you have parasites? Which, by the way, if you have a pulse, you have a parasite. Everybody does. You're a mammal. You're part of the animal kingdom. If you have a pulse, you have a parasite. If you've never done a parasite cleanse, you have a parasite. Where do we get parasites from? Biting insects, swimming in a lake, swimming in an ocean. Okay. Gardening, eating sushi, undercooked meat. So just to name a few places. Okay. There's others too, but we can get parasites from that. Lyme disease is notorious, especially in mosquito bites. Any biting insect can actually transmit Lyme, not just from ticks or Lyme co-infection, which are infections that kind of hitch a ride on the same vehicle, meaning the same insect that actually transmit the Lyme disease. And a lot of times these same diseases can mimic each other and look like each other. And a lot of times these get missed by Western medicine practices. Well, my fecal sample was negative. Okay, that doesn't mean that you don't have parasites in other parts of your body. You just don't have it in your poop. Okay. So, but you can have parasites in lung. You can have it in your heart. I've had patients with muscle cramping and restless leg syndrome. They actually had parasites in their muscles. We started taking care of the parasites. Guess what? They stopped waking up with Charlie horses. They stopped having restless leg. And then they also stopped having nightmares and insomnia. So you can have parasites in other areas of the body as well, not just in your digestive tract, which can still throw off things. So we want to get to the underlying cause, and how we do that is with a technique called quantum nutrition testing. It is a technique and technology that actually uses quantum physics. So it uses quantum physics. And kind of like everything is made up of energy. How are you listening? How am I actually, my voice? How is my picture? How am I all over the internet right now? Nobody ever thinks about this. How is my voice traveling from this computer to your screen? It's kind of goofy, right? How do you send a text message halfway across the country? There's no wires involved. How is that happening? Well, that's radio frequency. That's energy. Okay. So radio frequency, text messages. I mean, nobody ever questions it. Nobody ever thinks about it because they do it all the time. But if you really think about it, how does a text message jump from one phone to another phone halfway across the world? Like in split nanosecond. It's really kind of goofy. That's radio frequency. Well, everything is made up of energy. Okay. And this is quantum physics. So using this technology in quantum physics, we can find out exactly what area of the body is working optimally, which area of the body is not working optimally, whether you have normal labs or not. And this is why so many people will go to the doctor and they say, hey, I don't feel good, but their labs are normal. Well, guess what? Those symptoms that they have is like their check engine light going off. Just because your check engine light goes off doesn't mean that your car isn't running. But it's an indication that, hey, something might not be functioning as well as it should be. And if you let the check engine light go unchecked, then eventually you might have an engine breakdown. Well, think of your body. Okay. Anytime that you have a symptom is your check engine light going off saying, hey, something is not functioning optimally. And you can have normal labs, just like your car can continue to work and run with a check engine light on. But finally, when it does break down, think of your labs now showing up as abnormal. Now it's going to take a lot of work to get your car or your body to function properly because you waited too long. Same difference. And not only that, blood work. When we do blood work, we're comparing you to everybody else. And just because it's normal for one person doesn't mean it's normal for you. Your body is completely unique and whoa, excuse me. Your body is completely unique and different. You know, what's normal for you might not be normal for me, and vice versa. So, this is why I like this technique because I'm actually testing your body against your body using quantum nutrition testing. So, and we have patients across the country. We have patients in North Carolina, Texas, Florida. We have patients in Wisconsin, Southern Indiana, like literally all over the place. And we can help find out what organs are functioning optimally, which ones are not. And if they're not, then the underlying cause, whether it's toxins, parasite, Lyme, mold, food intolerances, etc. And then we can find out specifically what supplements your body needs to get rid of the underlying cause while giving nutritional support. So it's literally a tailor-made program for the individual. So that's what quantum nutrition testing is. And it works really well to the point where I don't really practice Western medicine anymore. And specifically this because it's helped out so many patients with various symptoms, including autoimmune, blood pressure, diabetes, mental health issues, gut issues, chronic pain, fatigue, hormonal imbalances, just to name a few. If you want more information, please DM me in the comments, or direct message or, state me in the comments and we'll reach out to you. Or don't hesitate to ask any questions in the comment section either. Otherwise, you can call 708-694-4092. Hopefully that kind of answers any questions, especially about parasite cleanses, what to do if you're not feeling well. Make sure that you're on complete binders, you're drinking plenty of fluids, you're adding stuff to help support your kidneys, bladder, liver, and your lymphatic system. And hopefully that answers any questions. Have a good night, guys. Talk to you next week.